Hi, Luke Johnson here. One of my students wanted to learn more about Schopenhauer and his corresponding ethical theory. It's been a good bit since reading On the Basis of Morality, Schopenhauer's most recognized ethical treatise. And given that only so many hours exist in the day, I got up to speed by creating an outline from David E. Cartwright's article, Schopenhauer's Narrower Sense of Morality, in the Cambridge Companion to Schopenhauer, edited by Christopher Janaway. Also, I just set a record for how many times one can say Schopenhauer in 2 sentences. I'm going to share that outline and provide some commentary for all those who identify with this miserable man with a top-shelf haircut and an abiding affinity for all things poodle. Disclaimer, don't rely on this for your understanding of Schopenhauer's ethical theory and his larger metaphysical system. Go buy the Cambridge Companion. I can also endorse Janaway's own Schopenhauer, a very short introduction. What follows here is a surface skim of Cartwright's article. The real thing is much better. And please don't be like me. Go back and read the actual Schopenhauer text if your interest is piqued by this video. Alright, so Cartwright begins by contextualizing Schopenhauer as a very unique Kantian. How did Schopenhauer rage against the crusty deontologist? Apparently in a myriad of ways. Cartwright relates the 4 most compelling arguments. First, Schopenhauer claims Kant unconsciously co-opted theological ethics. Emmanuel was not entitled to reject God as the basis of a non-empirical moral law and still speak within a theological context. What Schopenhauer means here is that all this ought and duty talk of Kant's presupposes a moral reward and an afterlife to receive it and a lawgiver to give us our just deserts. If Kant's ethical theory presupposes all of this, rather than lead to its postulation, then we act for duty. We are not acting in a disinterested fashion. We keep the categorical imperative because we are looking for a heavenly payday. Heavenly paydays cater to our egoism, and when we have our egoism seduced in such a way, the categorical imperative is supplanted by a hypothetical imperative. Since Schopenhauer believes, as Kant, that egoistic morality is a paradox, Kant's moral law ultimately lacks moral worth. Second, Schopenhauer believed when you implemented the categorical imperative, corrupting consequences entered into the equation. And Kant, he believed, acknowledged this when Kant debated whether the flourishing man ought to be indifferent to others or charitable. Kant thought being charitable was the rational thing to do because who wouldn't want a world full of charitable folks? Again, egoism is at work, claims Schopenhauer, and this truly hypothetical law fosters impure agency. Third, Kant's ethical ideas were whacked because a moral system completely driven by duty appears to ignore so many actions that we take to be moral. We might actually find it to be immoral to deal with an ethical agent that isn't motivated by passions of some sort, rather than a vaguely and problematic reverence for the moral law within. Fourth, Schopenhauer argued that Kant was wrong to equate the nucleus of what people are with reason. For Schopenhauer, reason is a secondary quality of humans. Humans are to be primarily thought of as will. Will sets our ends, whereas reason is a function of our will. If our will is good, reason will lead us to virtuous ends. If our will is bad, reason will lead us to unspeakable evil. Janaway, in his book, tells us of an image Schopenhauer was fond of using to describe the relationship between intellect and will. Imagine a blind brute who hoists a seeing invalid on his shoulders. That is what we are for Schopenhauer, blind will and keen but weak intellect. So Schopenhauer was a strange Kantian. He remained committed to the idea of a non-egoistic moral action and a general ethical principle of his own, which ran something like this: hurt no one and help everyone as much as you can. How did Schopenhauer arrive at this idea familiar to Eastern and Western traditions? Schopenhauer believed there to be 4 motives behind human reason. First, egoism, desire for an agent's own well-being. He viewed this as being morally indifferent, and there'll be more on this later. 2, compassion, desire for another's well-being. He thought this was morally worthy. Again, I will elaborate. 3, malice, desire for another's misfortune, which he viewed as morally reprehensible. And 4, an unnamed incentive, which was a desire for one's own misfortune, which is strange. Everyone has these motives within them and expresses them to different degrees. Our character is the result of the combination. Schopenhauer believed egoism to be the natural standpoint. Every phenomenological individual is an expression of a metaphysical will or force, causing each to strive for self-preservation. This obviously leads to a conflict. However, the pain inflicted by unreflected egoism is morally neutral rather than wrong on Schopenhauer's view. Malice is morally depraved and takes egoism one step further by intending misfortune for individuals. Schopenhauer thinks malicious individuals have an insatiable and insufferable will to life, and to partially allay it, they make the suffering of others their goal. Pure justice and philanthropy cannot be motivated by egoism or malice. Thus, only compassion can motivate moral action. When we are compassionate, we identify with others' well-being. We see that we are all mere drops in the oceanic metaphysical will. Virtue and vice reveal our moral character or the particular assortment and ratios of the motives driving reason. Schopenhauer believed this character to be fixed. Thus, there is no such thing as moral education, and our disposition is innate. How can Schopenhauer say who is better if all the moral dispositions are innate and etched into our individualized selves? Apparently, the compassionate person grasps the larger metaphysical truth that all our parts are of a universal will. The egoist and the malignant person are fundamentally at odds with this brute truth of numerological reality. So here are some questions to ponder as you mull over this video, and I know I've gone way too fast. 1. Schopenhauer was an avowed atheist, yet an essential feature of both his ethics and metaphysics involves the postulation of a universal will. How are we to think of this blind force? Is it incoherent to deny God and affirm this will to life? If Schopenhauer cannot get this fundamental feature of his metaphysics right, how much ought we to trust his ethical point of view which is predicated upon it? 2. Is it truly the case that moral character cannot be improved incrementally or suddenly? Will wretches remain wretches and angels always be angels? And 3. What is the unnamed motive behind reason that involves the downfall of the self? Does this lead to asceticism and self-annihilation? If asceticism is found to be more in accord with the numerological metaphysical world, does that mean asceticism is the more profound moral truth? All right. If you would like to hire me as an individualized humanities instructor, subscribe to my YouTube channel, write me at philosophyluke@gmail.com, or call me at 703-727-2184. I can meet with you in the Northern Virginia area, or we can do the whole Skype thing. All right. Okay, bye.